Well, hey, glad to be with you once again. And today's topic is something that I tell you, it's really been something I've been thinking about just over the last few days in particular, but it's also something that I've heard and thought about over the years that I think is so critical for any of us in life and leadership. Um, Things just aren't always going to be easy. And what I want to talk about today is finding opportunities in your obstacles. And this conversation, this topic for this episode is really inspired by this book I knew about, hadn't read about it. I think I put it in my Amazon cart a long time ago, and I thought I'll get to it someday. And I was reminded of it again recently, and I thought, you know what, it's time to read that book. And that's kind of how things happen with me a lot of times, as I read great books at great times. And it's based on this book, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And the reality of it is basically the key point of it is that um, we see obstacles and we let them stop us too often, when reality, the obstacle might actually be pointing us in the direction where we need to go. It might be a signal to us. He ends the book with this. I want to share this with you. He says, see things for what they are, do what we can, endure and bear what we must. What blocked the path now is a path. What once impeded action advances action. The obstacle is the way. So, the thing that we tend to try to avoid, right, is often the thing that we need to do next. And I've shared this many times before, but years ago when I was first starting my business, the first several years, I would say, of my business, I didn't want to talk about marketing. I hated people talking about marketing. And it was literally in my quiet time here in my home office one morning, I felt like the Lord said to me, Chris, the thing that you are avoiding the most, the things you hate the most right now, this marketing topic, is actually the thing that you need to learn right now and next. And that was powerful for me. You see, that was my obstacle at that time. Marketing's a challenge for any business, no matter what size or scope it is. But for me, I'd been avoiding a topic that I needed to learn in order to go to another level, to achieve my goals. And I'd basically been avoiding it. I'd been running from it, didn't want to talk about it, felt tired of people talking about it. And so I didn't want to hear about it. And the reality was that it was the thing I needed to focus on next, because that obstacle would be a way forward for me in order to achieve new success. So maybe there's a lot of things that are in your way, right? I mean, and one of the things he talks about in this book is that, life throws a lot of curveballs at us, right? Life throws obstacle after obstacle. And even toward the end of the book, he talks about that. He said, life is basically a series of obstacles that we have to learn to overcome. And when we learn to overcome them, we become better, we become stronger, we become smarter, and we need to look at these obstacles as opportunities. See, sometimes those opportunities come in the form of just new learnings. That I think that's kind of the basic bare minimum of this, is that when you face a challenge of any kind, personal, professional, relational, even internally, something that you're dealing with, it's like your angst is rising up, you have anxiety about it, those obstacles, they at least teach us something if we let them. But from I'll say a more practical standpoint, is that obstacles actually point the way and give us new opportunities to be more successful. So, how many times have we heard just stories of people who they faced an obstacle, and then by overcoming that obstacle, they basically innovated, or they created a new market for something, or something happened. How many different things have been created over time that were accidents. So they seemed like obstacles. Something wasn't working right, but in the end, it became a new product, a new service, a new way to help other people. He even shares a story of Thomas Edison. I never heard this before, but he said that Thomas Edison, I think when he was like 67 years old, was at home, and he received a knock on the door. People were panicking. They're like, "Your laboratory's on fire." And basically, they ran down to the lab. It was already, out of control. The fire department couldn't do anything about it. And Thomas Edison, instead of like melting down, freaking out, collapsing over what was being lost, he told his son, "Go back and get your mom. She'll never see flames this color again because of all the chemicals that were in this plant and in this lab." And so he looked at it as, I can't do anything about this. It's out of my control. And what he did was he basically rebuilt. And it said that um, he would have lost a lot of money. You know, I forget the exact number they mentioned at this time, but the bottom line is I think he lost like $31 million in today's money by those buildings and all that his research and everything was lost. But when they rebuilt, he actually over the next year generated like $300 million, 10x of what he lost and what he did from that new point forward. So, you know, something that would have certainly been tragic, something that certainly would not have been what he would have wanted was actually a clean slate for him to build from there. And I think once again, this whole thing is about mindset. It's about mindset, right? That 6 inches between our ears, as they say, is the biggest obstacle for most of us achieving new levels of success. You and I can do so many things in our lives, in our businesses, in our relationships, and yet our mindset holds us back so much. It becomes our obstacle. And so learning about thinking better, right? Embracing new thinking, seeing obstacles not as something to shy away from, run away from, pout about, is to say, okay, what is the opportunity in this obstacle right now? What can I learn in this situation? Maybe your business is struggling. Maybe your relationships are struggling. Maybe you have health issues. What is it that you can actually learn from in that obstacle? What is it that you can actually do something different? You know, how many times have people received a terminal cancer diagnosis of some kind? And you know what they did? They prioritized differently and they said, you know what? I know that my life is coming to an end, but I'm gonna make sure I make the most of it. And they spend more time with the people they love. They do things they've always wanted to do. They A lot of things fell to the side that they were worried about previously until that diagnosis hit. And it doesn't have to be a cancer diagnosis or a terminal illness of some kind that forces us. We shouldn't let that be only the catalyst that is used. Let every challenge be a catalyst for you to say, you know what, I'm going to get better. I'm going to do better. I'm going to think differently around this. I'm going to be innovative. I'm going to be creative. And a lot of people find themselves stuck because what we do is we end up aligning ourselves to play the victim's role rather than the victor's role. And if you look at an obstacle and say, you know what, that is a new challenge for me to tackle. That's a new mountain for me to climb. That's a new thing for me to overcome. When you take on that approach and instead of pouting about it, you can actually take action about it. And then you're going to get better. Here's the thing. Somebody else needs to see your perseverance. Somebody else needs to see you overcome those things too. So your willingness to tackle that challenge, your willingness to overcome your obstacles and to find opportunities and obstacles, to talk about those opportunities, it will change someone's life. It might change many people's lives. See, the stories that we often value the most in life are of the comeback story, right? It's overcoming the challenge. Movies are built around this. There's some kind of problem pretty much in every movie, right? Whether it's the superhero movies or the rom-coms or whatever it may be, documentaries even, right? There's some kind of challenge that somebody faced, and by overcoming that, they became better, they became stronger, they became wiser. We are the same. As human beings, we are all the same in this, that if we approach this properly, and that's the key word here is properly, then we will be able to be better for it. If your business is up against a challenge, maybe a competitor has overcome, you know, you in the market, or maybe somebody has even stolen from you or damaged your business in some way, shape, or form. You can sulk, you can pout, you can feel bad, but you can also say, you know what, I can't change what happened. So what I need to do is come up with a new way to overcome this, a new way to address this. So what I want to encourage you today is to think about your obstacles just differently. And I'm telling you, it's just a mental switch that we have to flip. And I'm saying this out of my own experience. Like there are times, there are moments, even recently, there's been moments where I just kind of felt down about kind of where things have been in my business or my life and or certain situations. I'm like, why am I not farther along, right? Like how many times we feel that way as leaders, like our business should be farther along, I should be farther along, my family should be in a different state. This, that, we have all these things of, what we wish for, what we think should be differently. But the reality is that we are where we are. And we have moments of clarity in that we have to realize, you know what, I can't change where I am immediately, but I can think differently about it and I can do something differently about it. So we have more power than we think, but it starts in our mind. It starts in our thinking. If you're up against a challenge, you can sit there and spin your wheels and lose days and weeks and months and years, or you can say, you know what, this is the next thing I need to really dig into and tackle and learn. See, that whole story I told you earlier about my marketing learning journey, you know what? There's new topics that keep popping up after that. So for 2 years at least, I just dug into marketing. So many of my books behind me, I read or I've read about marketing and copywriting and all sorts of advertising, all these different things, right? Like to understand the strategies and the thinking about some of the greatest marketers that have been around in the last 100 years. I really dug in. But once I got done with that stretch, that season of really learning about marketing, I realized, you know what? I have a better grasp of this. I need to implement, I need to keep practicing and trying new things. But guess what? New things started to rise up that I needed to learn. And even today, I sit there and think about, well, what do I need to learn next? So if I've learned this, what do I need to learn next? Because life is a series of lessons learned that stack on each other. And here's the other side of this. A lot of times the younger we are, the farther we think we should be. And the reality is we need to look at life as a journey of learning and discovery of trials and error and learning from those errors and failures and move on to the next thing because you're not a failure unless you just stop. The whole thing about Thomas Edison, right, that we've heard that's essentially become a cliche, but it's so true is, he failed 1,000 times or 10,000 times, whatever the number is, before he truly perfected the incandescent light bulb. Other people were out there trying too, but we know his name because he didn't give up. He persevered. He persisted in his efforts, but he failed over and over and over again. And I think that's one of the biggest things. A quote in here, I'll probably misquote it, but basically the idea is that the obstacle is often shows us the way because it shows us what's not the way, is what Ryan Holiday was saying. Basically, when you run into an obstacle, and you're like, you know what? I'm running into this brick wall, let's say, and I can't get around it. Well, guess what? Then you start looking for open doors on the sides. You start looking for ways over top. You start looking for ways underneath, whatever the case may be. And he talks in here about sideways or side door opportunities or options. So sometimes you're trying to bang through a front door and it's just like steel door locked. There's no way you're going to get in through that front door. But if you just walk around the side of the building, there's a door that's unlocked. There's a window that's open. There's something there. There's a hole in the wall that you can enter into. So a lot of times we see the obstacle for what it is and we don't look around it. We don't look above it. We don't look below it. And we need to really start to think differently about, okay, if this thing's in my way, how can I get either through it? And if I can't get through it, how do I get around it, over it, or under it? And I know that that's metaphorical in a lot of ways here, but you get the point, right? Is that you're going to face obstacles, but those obstacles actually give you the next thing to focus on. That was probably one of the key learnings for me years ago. That before I ever read this book, and it was probably inspired by this book, I heard someone talk about this whole concept and just the fact that, the obstacle is something that many people allow to stop them. But people who are successful say, you know what, that's the next thing I need to tackle. That's the next thing I need to overcome, the thing I need to learn, or whatever the case may be. So, what is your opportunity in the current obstacle you're facing? What is the opportunity in the challenge right in front of you right now? Maybe it's a personal thing, maybe it's a team thing, maybe it's an organizational thing. Whatever it is, let that be the thing you focus on so that you can ultimately get past it. The obstacle is the way. It can be at least, but we have to allow ourselves to let it be. So you have to see things differently. He talks a lot in this book about perspective and perception. That whole idea that perception is your reality, that's true. I think Henry Ford was the one that gets credit for saying, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Well, that's a perception thing. If I think I cannot be successful in something, guess what? There's a pretty much 100% guarantee that I'm not going to be successful because I believe that I can't be. So I'm not going to try. I'm not going to look for ways to be successful in that. But if I have the mindset of I can be successful, I can figure this out, then there's not a 100% guarantee that I will, but there's a much better chance that I will. I love John Maxwell's question shifting. I believe it was in his book Intentional Living, is where I read it. And then I heard him speak about it one time is instead of asking yourself, can I or can we ask yourself, how can I? Instead of saying, can I overcome this obstacle, say, how can I overcome this obstacle? There's options. There's lots of options. How can we as a team overcome this current challenge that we're facing? See, there's the other thing that Ryan Holiday talks a lot about in this book that I really appreciate is that there's so many things in life, in our world that we can't control. There's just these external factors that we can't control. But what we can control is what goes on internally in our heart and our mind, our soul. And if we guard that and if we fortify that, strengthen that, then we'll be able to address and overcome a lot of obstacles that we're facing that other people would just wouldn't because they allow external factors dictate their results and their actions. So if I think that the world is against me, or if I think the government is against me, or if I think that, those people are against me, or once again, I can't figure out a solution around this problem. If that is the external stuff is just really affecting me and I don't have the right mindset, then I'm not going to be successful. It's that whole idea that, a ship is in the water, but you don't have to let the water into the ship. Right? I mean, if you go out on a ship into the ocean, there's a lot of things that can happen. Storms can come up, high waves, rough seas. You could come into a hurricane. I mean, there's all these weather factors, right? That if you're out there in the ocean that you're going to face that you couldn't have predicted, and you can't stop. But what you can do is navigate the waters and the situation that you're in. You can say, you know what, this isn't the ideal situation. This isn't what I hoped for. This isn't what I expected. But I have the opportunity as the captain of this ship to navigate this effectively. And many times, how you navigate your obstacles, how you overcome them, how you see the opportunities within them, it's a benefit not just for you, but it's for many people around you. It could be for your team, it could be your family, it could be for your community, it could be for the world at large. I mean, I think about people. I was just watching a video the other day about Elon Musk, and he was talking about, the energy consumption and what's going on, as AI continues to increase and all the energy needs that are coming. And he's like, we just don't have the capability to produce fast enough on Earth what needs to be produced to keep up with the pace of computing power and AI, computing needs. So what is that man doing? And we know Elon is his own animal, right? Like he's a Thomas Edison of our day and age kind of guy. But he's saying, you know what, we need to do utilize solar energy out in space because the closer you get to the sun, the stronger the energy is that um, you can get, but you can also transform to be useful. I haven't heard anybody talk about that previously. Maybe other scientists have been talking about this, but the distance we are on Earth from the sun gives us like a certain level of energy consumption that we can truly get. But if you put satellites and solar, power plant type units out into space closer to the sun, farther out in the distance, you can actually get more energy faster. See, Elon. Yes, he's I think a trillionaire now, right? Like the wealthiest man in the world. But the reality is what he's creating is not just for Elon. People may not like him. I'm sure I mean, there's all this political polarization around him, over the last, presidential campaign and all these things with him and Trump and all that. You got to let that go and look at the fact that this man is brilliant and he's thinking kind of 20 years into the future all the time. And he's saying, how can we take, the limitations we have, how can we get past them? How can we take this obstacle that's in front of us? We have all this AI computing power and all this capability that we can now create, and it's just speeding up faster and faster and faster, but we don't have the way to create the energy to support it. So he's thinking, well, let's put solar power plants out into space. Like, right? I mean, he's thinking differently because it's not just about what he'll benefit from, it's what our entire world will benefit from. He sees obstacles for humanity that he's trying to overcome, whether that be electric powered cars with Tesla, whether that be SpaceX um, with space travel, whether that be Starlink with the internet, and now whether it be whatever he's going to call this whole thing with trying to figure out how to have solar power uh, out in space. I don't know what he's going to call it, right? But the reality that I want to bring up here is simply that he's thinking about we have obstacles and there's opportunities within these obstacles. So for you, what does that look like? What are your current obstacles? You're probably not worried about how to send satellites and some kind of a unit, out into space to generate solar power. It's probably not your thing right now, right? That's okay. But maybe it's, hey, I've got a tough customer I'm trying to deal with, or I'm trying to grow my business, or I'm trying to get to that next level personally or professionally, or our team just seems stuck and we just can't get over the hump right now and we're just struggling. Well, what is the obstacle in that? And what is the opportunity within that obstacle that you're dealing with? So your team, if you're feeling stuck, how can your team come together and collaborate more? That's an opportunity for your team to really get on the same page more and to really tackle a hard issue together. If you overcome that obstacle, that's great, but if your team gets stronger because you're facing an obstacle together and you're growing together and you find ways to get past that current obstacle, guess what? They're better moving forward. They're better together, they're better individually, and now you have that win under your belt. So just think about this. Think about what are the opportunities within any obstacle you're currently facing. Once again, personal, professional, relational, health-wise, whatever it may be. We're all going to face obstacle after obstacle after obstacle in our lives. And instead of bemoaning that and feeling bad about it, let's shift our thinking to say, you know what, these obstacles are actually like us going to the gym and lifting weights to make us stronger and healthier. If I go to the gym and I lift up a weight and say, you know what, that's heavy, I'm not doing that again, and I walk out the door, do I benefit at all? No. But if I walk in that door and I lift the weight and it's heavy and I say, you know what, today I can do 5 reps, but I want to get to 10. Well, guess what? The next time you go in, maybe you do 7. The next time you go in, maybe you can get to 10. And then maybe once you get to 10 a few times, you're like, you know what, I need to increase that weight. I need to bump up 5 pounds, 50 pounds, whatever the case may be, that you're working out with. But you basically are saying, look, I have to start where I am and I have to look at this obstacle as an opportunity to grow, as an opportunity to get better, as an opportunity to be more successful. And if we do that, it will change the way we see things. So let me just kind of wrap up by rereading what Ryan Holiday said here again. See things for what they are, do what we can, endure and bear what we must. What blocked the path now is a path. What once impeded action advances action. The obstacle is the way. If you are facing your own challenges or team challenges or needing to get stronger in your leadership or your team needs to get stronger in leadership, I really encourage you to check out my website, McClureCoaching.com. I would love to set up a free strategy call with you to talk about how can we work together to help you or your team or both get stronger and better. How do you overcome certain obstacles that you're facing? How do you start to even see obstacles coming down the road and have that objective thinking partner alongside you? So go to McClureCoaching.com. You can click the button there on there to schedule your free strategy session. We'll get together and talk about what you're going through, how to handle that, and potential ways to move forward together. So take care, God bless, and we will see you soon.